see if you. We're trying to get a hold of this guy who wrote this great book. Sarah or Jeffy, could you just ask Julie to bring in my iPad? I downloaded the book because I didn't have the copy of it here. I read it about a year ago. Stephen Dubner gave it to me from Freakonomics, and it's Physics for Future Presidents, and it's great. It's basically like physics for dummies, which I think most future presidents, at least the ones I've seen, probably will be. But it explains all of the different physics problems that, for instance, terrorism and dirty bombs and everything else. And one of them was the meltdown at Chernobyl. And I remembered that last night because I was up about 1:30 this morning. I couldn't sleep, and because this is bothering me. There's something wrong here. There's something wrong with the Libya thing, and there's something wrong with this Japanese power plant, and I can't figure it out yet because I don't trust anybody. Have you guys found yourself doing this? I don't necessarily trust the Japanese government because they may be so overwhelmed that they don't even know what's going on. I don't think the Japanese are lying to everybody. But then again, their whole economy could be at stake. So, it's in their best interest, I guess, not to say the truth.
Yeah, they don't want to create widespread panic either.
Sure.
So,
and I don't understand our side because we have a Surgeon General who is saying, yeah, you know what, if you live in California, maybe you should go get some iodine tablets. That's insane.
Yeah, that's more dangerous than, any possible, unless there's a nuclear disaster going on in California that we don't know about.
Okay.
Because I haven't heard that report.
It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so I got up last night and I'm reading about Chernobyl from the book Physics for Future Presidents. And this guy's one of the leading physicists, or I think he's nuclear scientist as well. And he's one of the leading guys. And he's at the University of Berkeley. So he's a lefty. And in reading his book, I haven't read it in about a year or so, but in reading the book, I was left with the impression that he doesn't like nuclear energy. He's a greenie and everything else, but he's at least a facts-driven guy. He doesn't necessarily draw any conclusions. This book is to help you think and you decide what's right. And he says, I'm going to give many details about the accident in Chernobyl because it is frequently referred to by people hoping to influence policy. The facts can easily be exaggerated and easily downplayed, so it's useful to know the facts. Most of the harm from Chernobyl accident was done in the first few weeks. Each nucleus can explode only once, so the radioactivity gets used up. After 15 minutes, the radioactivity had dropped to 1/4 of its initial value. After 1 day, to 1/15. After 3 months, to less than 1%. But there's still some left even today. But much of the radiation literally went up in smoke, and the only radiation and only the radiation near the ground affected the population. Now think of just that. Only the radiation near the ground, not the stuff that went up in smoke, really affected people. Now how, if that is true, how does anyone, our government, think that the radiation that is going up in steam is affecting people in California? Or where is it? The Aleutians today, right? It's going to hit I think it's Aleutians today and California tomorrow, wasn't it?
I thought it was both.
I don't know. I'm staying in my house and I'm in New York. Mm-hmm. It is hard to estimate the total radiation exposure to humans. About 30,000 people near the reactor, this is Chernobyl, are thought to have received about 45 rem each on average, similar to the average dose received by the survivors of Hiroshima. Note that this average level is too small to induce radiation sickness, but that the chance of additional cancer for people exposed is 45 over 2,500 equals 1/8%. So if you're exposed to the amount of radiation that the people who are living around Chernobyl were exposed to, you have an additional a chance of getting cancer of 1.8%. That risk should lead to about 500 cancer deaths in addition to the 6,000 normal cancers from natural causes in the area. The government decided to evacuate all regions around Chernobyl in which a person would receive a lifetime dose of 35 rem or more. For most of the region, the radioactivity, now in 2008, died down to the level well below 1 rem per year. So in principle, people could now move back. Now, he writes, here is the tough question the kind of the president might have to address. Was the evacuation of the Chernobyl region wise? To think of this, imagine this, instead of being a future president, you're just a resident of Chernobyl. Right after the accident, you have to make a choice. Imagine that unless you left, you would get a radiation dose of 45 rem. And as I've just shown, that dose increases your cancer risk from 20% to 21.8%. If given a choice, would you give up your home in order to avoid this 1.8% increase? Some people would say yes, and they would evacuate even if not required to do so. Some people would stay. The additional risk is small, but they would decide, and the loss in giving up their homes would be huge. So, if that's Chernobyl, that the real risk for those living around the plant at the time, remember, you don't have that. Japan moved people 12 miles away almost immediately. And this wasn't burning like Chernobyl was. Now, I don't even know what's going on now, but it wasn't then. You also have such devastation in that area that you don't have everybody around. They weren't there when it happened in the first place. And in Chernobyl, the worst ever, only increased your chance of cancer by 1.8%. Now, I don't understand what the hell is happening. This story is not fact-based driven. Now, how is anyone supposed to make any decision when we're not basing anything on the facts? So what is it based on? Is it based on, Hillary Clinton came out yesterday and said, we really should reconsider what we're going to do with our nuclear power. I mean, is it something that we want? Is it something we should continue? Well, what is that based on? We get what, 28% of our power?
Nuclear is 19.5, I think.
19.5? That's all electricity?
Of electricity, yes.
Electricity. Mm-hmm. So 20% of our electricity comes from nuclear power plants. Maybe 28 is Japan. I think 28 is Japan.
75 in France.
I mean, where are you going to replace that? By the way, the EPA is today implementing new rules to go against mercury. Mercury, they are now limiting mercury. This particular rule is to go against coal manufacturers. That's the only one this affects. Coal. So we have the president now going and targeting oil companies, targeting the Gulf region through Cass Sunstein, making regulation impossible to be able to get new permits to drill. Then you have the EPA going after our coal industry. And now we're having an argument not based on any facts. Tell me what the facts are. And we're starting to talk about maybe we don't have nuclear energy either. Help me out here. What are we running our lives on? Do you know how many people, and I don't mean this to be, I mean this as serious as I can say it. Do you know how many people will starve to death if you get rid of, 40% of our energy? If you limit coal, limit oil, and erase nukes? Let's just say we get 20% of our energy as reduction. Where is that reduction taking place? How do you grow with 20%? You don't. You de-develop, which is the Marxist globalist plan. You de-develop. How do you do it? Let's have a real serious conversation here. The world could have its oil field set on fire at any time. And we're regulating ourselves out of existence. And this is not a Barack Obama thing. This is a global move. What is this really about? Because something's wrong.
Quickly to kind of clean up what we were talking about earlier, I believe that my understanding is the helicopters are dumping the water on Reactor 4, and Reactor 4 is the one with the spent fuel rods. That was the one that was not online when the earthquake happened. So that's one of the surprising issue out of this is that it wasn't actually the reactors with all these containment facilities and everything else. It's been this one with spent fuel rods, and that water is boiling up, and that's why they're dumping it on that one. The thing I was talking about was the steel vessel, which they can pump seawater in around the vessel rather than in it to cool it from the outside, but not the giant concrete structure you're talking about, not the weird phallic symbol you just drew.
Yeah, but again, that metallic structure should have been in the containment facility. You don't just have that out. You're not like, oh, and this one? I mean, that was the difference we were talking about this week. That's the difference between this and Chernobyl. Those weren't just sitting out in the open. So when things blew in Chernobyl, that was the only line of defense. This had 3 lines of defense. If they're down to that, then they've lost 2 lines of defense. That nobody said that before.
My understanding, though, is that because this one wasn't active, it's a different situation. It wasn't an actually functioning reactor at the time of the earthquake.
Okay, but they
were storing spent fuel rods. But I mean, you're still storing nuclear materials.